This is an incoming transmission from the Jersey Shore.
This is Financial Insanity with Scott McLean, powered by McLean Advisory Group. Today you'll hear some of the most important financial information and wealth-building techniques available anywhere.
Let's get this party started, huh?
Do you have a question for Scott and the team?
Am I on the air?
609-488-4646. That's 609-488-4646.
We'll get that information to them by radio.
Now, Financial Insanity with Scott McLean.
Sure, you can test drive a car, you can test drive an RV, but what about your retirement? Well, Scott McLean, McLean Advisory Group, here to share some tips think about before you make that leap into retirement. Thank you so much for joining us today for Financial Insanity, out-of-the-box thinking for your financial sanity. If you hear something today, it resonates with you, maybe raises some questions, that phone number, 609-488-4646. That is 609-488-4646. And today we're going to be talking a little bit about testing out that retirement, but also we're going to talk about testamentary trusts later on in the show, and then our mailbag segment at the very end as well. Get to some of your listener questions. But Scott, great to see you, my friend. And
thanks, buddy.
Yeah, man, you know how it is with things that we buy. we can test it out a lot of times.
I love that idea, test driving your.
Yeah,
I actually did the test driving car called Turo, Turo, for those listeners.
Okay,
it's a great way to rent a car if you want to try a Lamborghini or a Volkswagen Bug.
Oh, wow.
Any kind of cars you can actually rent on Turo.com. I love the service. So if you can't rent at Avis Rent a Car, or don't go there, Alamo or whatever, I can tell you one thing, it is kind of cool. And of course, test driving is wonderful because you can, deliver it, use it, leave it, and start over. But retirement is totally different.
Yeah, it's a little different.
There's no do-overs, Alex. You make a mistake, it's going to affect you.
No. But you know what, Scott? There are some ways that you can go into this and not be just totally blind. You can test out some things, or at least there are some techniques, right, Scott? I mean, maybe it's something like living on what's likely to be your fixed retirement income amount. Maybe you can get some help from Scott to determine what that is. Maybe you see what that's living like. Maybe you go to the region you're thinking about retiring in. You spend some time there. You spend a couple weeks. You spend a month. But what are some other things that folks can do, Scott, to kind of get a little bit used to, maybe test out retirement?
You hit it a nail on the head. A woman just today, before our show, Alex, when you came in and we're sitting together here talking about this situation, this young woman comes in here. We set her up on a budget. Mm-hmm. She just retired. She made very large income. The second challenge was her husband dies. That income, a lot of it went away. The third challenge is, what is she going to be paying in taxes as a single versus married? And so this came in. So we put her on a budget, and she agreed. Mm-hmm. And I said, don't touch any money. Tell me how the next 6 months. So we actually did that. We gave her a certain stipend on a monthly basis because she said, that's what it is, Scott. I said, let's see how we do. Well, she came in today. She left with the big old smile. Scott, I can't believe it. I really appreciate you putting me on a budget, even though she's an adult. She can do what she wants, Alex. Mm-hmm. You can understand that.
Right.
And he put her on a budget because, Scott, I have extra money left over. I said, wow, that's great. I said, you don't have any parties coming up? Do you have any big expenditures to fix the house up? Any appliances? What's coming? No, Scott, everything is really still good. I said, okay, let's do it again for another 6 months, and let's sit down again and have a come to Jesus meeting to make sure that everything's buttoned up nice and tight. But then what challenge is, we're going to be taking money from her IRA account, and she has some non-IRA money. We call that their banking account, savings account, checking account. Let's split it, taking from the IRA, and let's take a portion of it from the non-IRA, because the tax bracket is going to go from 12% to 3% just by the way we're setting this up right now. She looked at me and goes, well, I didn't even think about taxes. I said, well, I do, because that's what we do when we look at retirement, paying attention to the tax as well as how you pull money out. And again, how the short-term, long-term capital gains could affect a person in retirement could be tremendously impactful. Because why? Well, now she went from married Now she's single and she's at the highest tax bracket. So this is important as we talk about test driving. Well, we can test drive the taxes, figure out what the new tax rate's going to be because we don't know what it's going to be. We have whatever election year we're in. But the challenge is going to be, are we taking too little out? Are we taking enough out or not enough out? So she has to write a check. And that's what we had a discussion today because we do the taxes here as well, Alex.
Yeah. Talking about test driving your retirement today on Financial Insanity. That number for Scott McLean, the team at McLean Advisory Group here in Ocean County, New Jersey, 609-488-4646, 609-488-4646. And when it comes to testing out that retirement, you can maybe plan to work a gig job or volunteer, try it out one of those weekends if you think that might be something you want to do to spend your time. Because we know boredom is just the worst thing in retirement. But maybe you're someone though that loves spending time at home, or you think you might. Well, spend a little bit more time at home. See what that feels like to be in that space more often. Also, Scott, maybe you can connect with some groups, some people involved in some hobbies, pastimes really you plan to pursue. I mean, I know pickleball's all the rage, but there's plenty of stuff that you could do, groups to connect with, just to see, is this how I'd like to spend my time? And maybe you do that for a while and you think, okay, I'm into this volunteering gig. I'm going to keep that going. And maybe I've determined this amount of time I need to spend at home. And these are the groups that I want to connect with. And because, Scott, it can be scary. And we know this going into retirement. It's not only just about losing that paycheck, but it's a little bit about losing that identity. And like we mentioned, just boredom is just a thing that we want to avoid. And so I think it's wise to try to test some of this out in advance. What do you think?
It truly is, and it's important to be around people. We are people. Some people are not as much people persons as others, but again, that relationship when you're gathering with other people could really be an impact, whether it's your church, your synagogue, your organization, as you well said, being around people. And then, of course, sulking in your own misery as the young woman left today, she got out. Her husband passed away, and even though she was detrimental as her husband passed away, she got out. She started doing things. She started meeting people. Again, keeping her brain fresh versus watching the boob tube and clicking the channels, watching Bob Barker, who retired, but he's still on TV for the next 25 years.
Of course.
But it's important to get around other people. And then again, we talked about running out of money in one of our shows, and is it going to last? As you're in retirement, maybe the kids start knocking on the door because they want to borrow some money, or maybe they think you have money. Well, be very, very cautious on being such a philanthropist for your children, because what happens, you start giving away, which affects your investments, which affects your income. And if you're living to a ripe old age, it's possible to run out of money if you keep answering that door and saying, sure, I'll help you. Sure, I'll help you. So be very careful in how much you're giving away, because you save, your tire goes flat and you need a new tire. Save, refrigerator breaks. Save, air conditioner goes broken and you got to spend money. This is the small things that kind of come out of nowhere and that could really eat into your retirement. Or maybe you're starting to take that trip, as you said, Alex, in the RV, and you find out the gas prices on the beginning of the trip was $3.50 a gallon. And now you're over in California and it's $7 a gallon. Let's make it clear. Watch your dollars, be real frugal, and the rest will be really, really. And by the way, if you mess up, it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
But make sure you don't mess up and not fix it up.
Right.
Because that's where the stink starts to come.
And that number, if you have questions, 609-488-4646, 609-488-4646. And Scott, I know that for most people retiring, Social Security, it's going to be an important source of income, but there are some factors to keep in mind before you start claiming benefits, right, Scott? And it's not all about, well, my brother took it at this age, or I know that, hey, the earliest is this age, so I'm just going to start. There are a lot of things to think about.
There's 567 different ways to take Social Security. The way number one, which may be the best for other people, versus the second best, could be $100,000 over one's lifetime. So picking the right Social Security, if you haven't done it yet, this is important while you get with people. And there's some unique software that we pay for thousands of dollars that really help us guide people into picking Social Security. But again, that's going to be a critical question when we meet people. Again, the dollars, the dreams, the dollars, the dynasty, how are we going to pull money out? And again, how much of it will be taxed versus not taxed. And this is very important on what choice you make out there.
Absolutely. And Scott, we go through a lot of different topics on our show, and it really helps to highlight just the comprehensive approach that you take, Scott. And I know that you pride yourself in, and and I hate to date you, but the 40 years of experience. But I think it's important, though, Scott. It's important to let people know that you've been around, you've seen it all, you've got a great temperament for this, a good understanding of what has happened in the past, and you can help set people up for the future. And you can be that bad guy sometimes. When I say bad guy, that just, coming in and saying, hey, like you mentioned, we got to have this budget, or, hey, I know you want to do this for the kids, but I think this, and giving people just the green light to make decisions that are going to be best for them in the long run.
Retirement has a lot of decisions, Alex. It's not a set and forget it game. It's like baking cookies. If you leave them in there too long, you don't have a good batch. You don't put the right ingredients in, you don't have the good batch. It's monitoring it all the time, which is why a good chef will always taste the food before they end up serving the food, to making sure it's on. So when you taste the food, that means meeting with your advisor. He or she walks through your tax situation as well as your investments to make sure maybe the market's too volatile for you, and maybe you need to reduce your risk. Maybe you need to remove, like smart people, out of their 401k, and they move it into an IRA, because you've got a lot more choices rather than being stuck into this cookie cutter factory plan that the 401ks usually have. And now you need to get some different investment choices out there to really preserve your assets and give you an income that you can last a good long time. So when you go to the mailbox on the first of the month, the check is in the mailbox. The money is there. And this way you can put your head on your pillow and say, you know what? Cookies taste good. Great sleep. I have enough money. What a great way to really focus on your retirement, looking at all the areas, the holistic areas, Alex.
Yep.
That's important.
It is important. If you have questions, if you want a comprehensive look at your retirement, 609-488-4646, 609-488-4646. Well, coming up, we're going to be joined by senior advisor from McLean Advisory Group, George Castanis, going to join Scott, and we're going to talk about testamentary trusts. That's coming up.
Stop for a moment and think about this. Do you know how much money in your 401k or IRA is actually yours? Or will the government take a bigger chunk than you thought? Remember, you still might owe taxes on that money. But do you have a plan to help make sure you don't pay more than you should? At McLean Advisory Group, we believe you deserve to keep more of what you've earned, which is why we're here to help you navigate the confusing world of retirement taxes. It's your money. You deserve to know what's at stake. Right now, taxes are historically low, but they won't be this low forever. So call the McLean Advisory Group team today so you don't miss out on this opportunity. 609-488-4646. That's 609-488-4646. You work hard for your money, and we'll work just as hard to help you keep it. McLean Advisory Group, 609-488-4646. Investment advisory services offered through Sound Income Strategies, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisory firm. McLean Tax Advisory Group and Sound Income Strategies are not associated entities.
Get all this stuff and you try to put it away like these hoarders on TV. It has an emotional attachment.
So, Scott, you're saying I don't have to keep every single drawing that my son has done? You're saying I could throw some of that away?
The answer is yes. You can take a picture, then throw it out.
This is Financial Insanity with Scott McLean, presented by McLean Advisory Group.
Thank you so much for joining us today for Financial Insanity. I'm Alex Dingman, alongside, as always, Scott McLean of McLean Advisory Group, and also today's special guest, George Castanis, Senior Advisor with McLean Advisory Group right here in Ocean County, New Jersey. Scott, always good to see you. And George, great to have you on again, my friend.
Thank you very much. Glad to be here.
Heck yeah, and we have you on here because we're going to be talking about something a little specific and something that I know you guys feel like maybe isn't talked about enough, right?
It does. You're right. This is hardly ever brought up, which is why at our firm we do this all the time when we meet people for the first time to get to know them.
And we are going to be talking about testamentary trusts and how they can help align your assets with 3D planning. Dreams, your dollars, your dynasty, what we always talk about here on Financial Insanity. So we have a little scenario here to help explain this. And so imagine we have a couple here, Juan, 62 years old, and Liz. They are from the Oblivious family. Liz, 58. They're a couple with 3 grown children. They have Miguel, who's 27, and he has 2 children. Susan, 34, who has 3 children and a rocky marriage. And good old Tony, who's 35, from the estate valued at $1.2 million, which includes their home, retirement assets, and savings. And they have a clear vision for their legacy, and they want to ensure, like a lot of us, that their hard-earned assets benefit the grandchildren directly, even if their children pass away before them. So talk a little bit about this, Scott.
Alex, I'm glad if you're out there listening, this point is this, whether it's your estate like this or you have kids or no kids, understanding what's going on. But this family really want to ensure that their assets go to Miguel's and his and Susan, their children, their grandchildren. However, they also have some concerns. You see, they got a wild child, Tony, and he's got some bad habits, and they don't want him to get all the money at once. They prefer Tony to receive a monthly payment to protect him from himself and his bad habits. This is important. George, you had a thought about this as well.
Absolutely. It's super important to get everything lined up. In this scenario, if Miguel passes away, Susan will be the trustee for Miguel's children, and Miguel will be the trustee for Susan's children. Notwithstanding, though, you definitely want to make sure that even though perhaps the lawyer lines everything up and gets the trust and the testamentary trust correct, you want to make sure the beneficiaries of all the accounts are titled correctly. Super important to have someone just in your corner to make sure that everything lines up correctly. The setup provides control and ensures that your legacy stays within the family.
And I want to make sure that people jot this number down. If they have questions about testamentary trust or anything we talk about today, that phone number, 609-488-4646, 609-488-4646. It's Scott McLean and the team at McLean Advisory Group. So really the big deal here and something that you guys work with a lot is just making sure that people's wishes are honored. And so with Mr. and Mrs. Oblivious here, what can we do? I know that testamentary trust can help. Discuss this a little bit about how this tool can help ensure that that legacy is done like you want.
It's almost as if you're kind of directing the executrix to do your wishes and to avoid probate if possible, if it's nice and clean. And the problem is we've got Miguel with kids and Susan with kids. The question is their spouses. The family want to make sure the money goes to Susan or Miguel, the son and daughter. The child, and of course their other child who's a wild one. The question's going to be really is, in all fact, that Miguel's got 2 kids, Susan's got 3 kids, but she's got a rocky marriage. What happens if Susan dies and then mom and dad dies and the money goes down to the grandchildren? Well, then that means Susan's husband, or if they got divorced husband gets the assets. And if he or she gets remarried, and she meaning Miguel's wife, who gets the money? Now, could they divide it up correctly? Possibly. But let's not leave this a question mark. And if you're out there right now thinking, you know what? I think maybe my children could oversee. In this case, Miguel will be the trustee over Susan's children, and Susan will be the trustee over Miguel's children in the event they die, not their spouses. And I'm not making fun of anybody's spouses right now. If you're listening to me, I am not doing that. I'm making it very clear to keep the money within the bloodline. And how do we protect it? This is why people come to our firm, because we look at the assets, which are so critical, and by sending them to the wrong place, well, they can go to a lawyer. But if this is in writing like we want it to be and you want it to be, well, this is, again, we're baking the cake, making sure all the ingredients are exactly what you want. And if you're out there, please feel free to give our studios a call at 609-488-4646. You can ask for myself, you can ask for George, but let's have some time together to make sure your assets are buttoned up nice and tight. And this is what we don't see so many times. And this is like putting your head in the sand, letting your vitals get exposed to anybody who wants to get your money. And this is important, Alex.
Yeah. And you are listening to Financial Insanity. Scott McLean and George Castanis with McLean Advisory Group joining us today. And really, this is all part of that holistic view of financial planning, Scott, that comprehensive approach, which I know that you and your office pride yourself on. But how does this fit into it? When we're talking about testamentary trust, how's that fit into the comprehensive plan?
And, it's I want to hit on a point Scott hit on earlier. It's not just about managing the money after you're gone. A testamentary trust can offer all kinds of protection from against creditors, lawsuits, and even, I know we all have one in the family, irresponsible spending by beneficiaries. It's a way to safeguard the legacy for future generations. For example, like we're talking about Mr. and Mrs. Oblivious can set up a trust that ensures their grandchildren directly benefit from their assets as well.
Well, and that's just such a big deal. And it's really not about not trusting family members. It really is about just making sure that that legacy follows through and that your wishes are what is carried out. And so talk to me about this, too, about how this helps ensure that. And, who's in control of this at this point once it's, handed over? How does that work?
Well, for those listening right now, it's not difficult and very easy to do. Once your financial advisor drills you down and find out exactly how you want your money. I call it the dynasty, how that is going to be passed on. This is important to get all the details. But the testamentary trust is almost like your wishes, but someone's going to carry out your wishes and then they set it up. It's not really that expensive, if at all. We really talk about our clients. So number one, know what you know what you want to do if something were to pass, if you were to pass away. Correct that. Know what you want to know if you pass away. And it's kind of hard. And it may change from year to year. So must be set up like Juan and Liz Oblivious. They were totally oblivious as to how their estate was going to be divided up between the 3 kids. And in this case, we got a special needs son, not special needs, but a son that's doing things they ought not do. I don't know about your kids out there, drinking, smoking, doing things. Maybe they're not working, they're slackers. And you want to set up a trust. Well, that could be set up in the testamentary trust with inside the will. That could be setting it up. And what happens? Okay, maybe that child gets a monthly check. Or maybe you have a son or daughter that their health is not doing very well. And if you gave them all the money, they might blow it. Well, let's go set up a game plan, which is what we talk to you about in our meetings, how that money should be divided out, or what clauses should we put within the will and the testamentary trust so when someone gets the money, it's passed down just like you want it. George, you might have some other thoughts.
Yeah, another really important part here, Scott, and listeners, is definitely you want to get a trusted family member appointed as a trustee to manage those assets. Someone that will absolutely follow up on your wishes. And even after the family member, or maybe perhaps you have a family member that you trust that's aging, there's even trust companies out there that will continue on to manage those assets long after you're gone and can continue your legacy the way you wanted it to go.
If you've got questions, I want you really to enjoy this next phone number, 609-488-4646. Why to enjoy it? Because it's a place for you to go to that maybe your advisor didn't speak to the lawyer or even we're talking about taxation in a little bit. They didn't pay attention to the details. And that's where the rub can cause the crows and the clowns to show up at the funeral, not knowing what to do. This is important, Alex.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned something earlier, Scott, special needs and other unique circumstances, but I know that there's a way that the testamentary trust can address that as well, right?
It can. And so whether you're George brought up a spendthrift trust, maybe they want to blow all the money at once, you want to protect it, maybe they're doing medication, drugs, alcohol, whatever, they have a bad habit, they need help, set that up in the testamentary trust. Special needs. This is another whole special program that you out there, if you have a child that is special needs and you really want the best for that child, obviously you do, well, let's set it up correctly so your money doesn't get taken by the vultures. The nursing home, maybe mom and dad,
We also want to make sure we're using to our benefit all the government aid available. So if one of special needs child is receiving government aid, this is a great way to coincide those assets and those benefits.
It's a critical way. It is very important you don't procrastinate.
Well, it's a very important conversation. I'm glad we're having it today, and it really just helps highlight just the comprehensive approach that Scott and his team take at McLean Advisory Group. So that number again, if you have any questions, 609-488-4646. That is 609-488-4646, adda.com for the website. We come back, we're going to continue our discussion on testamentary trust, and we're going to get some listener questions as well. That's on the other side.
Who likes uncertainty? Wall Street certainly does not. With near-record inflation and partisan politics, there's a lot of uncertainty right now. What will America's future look like? What will your future look like? Will your taxes go up? Will your savings go down? For more than 40 years here in the Jersey Shore area, Scott McLean and the team at McLean Advisory Group have seen uncertainty come and go. No matter what the future holds, Scott can help you create a plan designed to preserve your finances in uncertain times. And it's not a matter of if those uncertain times will show up, but when. Call 609-488-4646 now to meet with Scott McLean and the team at McLean Advisory Group. If uncertainty is causing you to feel insecure, Scott McLean might be able to help. Call 609-488-4646 and schedule your visit today. Again, that's 609-488-4646.
Investment advisory services are offered through Sound Income Strategies, LLC. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal.
Retirement planning, investment planning is a two-way street. It's got to meet. I need to understand the good, bad, and ugly you've been through so we can avoid those issues. This, to me, is very important.
We made it back. This is Financial Insanity with Scott McLean, presented by McLean Advisory Group.
This is Financial Insanity, out-of-the-box thinking for your financial sanity. I'm Alex Dingman alongside Scott McLean, McLean Advisory Group. And also, George Castanis is on with us today, sub-advisor, both with tons of experience. And we're talking about a very important topic today, testamentary trust. And if you have questions, that number, 609-488-4646, 609-488-4646. And we're going to get to some listener questions on this topic, as we've had some from throughout the years, and so compiling here. And so our first call is from Julia in New Jersey. The question is here, hey, Scott, George, my parents thinking about setting up a testamentary trust. How does it impact taxes for the beneficiaries?
First of all, Julia, thank you for calling in. And most important, you're paying attention to your parents' affairs. A lot of kids won't get involved, and it's so important you do. So great job on that. You know, when I think about the income generated by the trust, it can be taxed at a trust level or distributed to the beneficiaries, taxed at the individual rates. So this is important to understand taxes and why when we meet with people one-on-one, or we have the children come in with the parents as we're doing the estate planning, this is very important, because when you help manage the overall tax burden, this is really important to look at the tax return in addition to the legal documents. Or if your advisor doesn't do it, then have the advisor make the phone call to the lawyer and go over it with you guys so you're all together on the same page, because that's where the problems come in. And additionally, when you think about the assets in the trust, it can be passed with a step up in basis if the lawyer designs it correctly. And I can tell you, some lawyers are unaware of how to make this happen. So this is important. I've read, and George has read, several different legal documents, and they are prepared incorrectly. Now, we're not lawyers, but we do deal with lawyers all the time. We understand this very well. It is a fair disclaimer. So again, the assets, can be sold and then distributed. This is important.
All right, our second listener question today, this is from Dave in Texas. Very cool. Thanks for calling in from Texas. All right, so Dave here, this question. Hey, everyone, wondering, can a testamentary trust help with Medicaid planning for long-term care? I haven't heard you necessarily talk about that yet, but what do you guys think?
Wow, Dave, that is a great question. Thanks so much for calling in and bringing that up. Absolutely. Testamentary trusts can be a valuable tool for Medicaid planning. Now, the important part here is you gotta, if you're doing any kind of planning that is this complicated, the laws change all the time. It's so crucial to make sure you get valuable information, current information. But they can definitely help by placing the assets in a testamentary trust. You can help ensure that those assets are not counted as part of your estate for Medicaid eligible purposes. Super important. You got to know what's countable. You got to know what's not countable. You know the rules of the game, and you can help preserve and play that game better, in a manner of speaking. This will help preserve those assets for your beneficiaries while still qualifying for those Medicaid benefits. However, it's important to work with that professional, like I said before, to navigate these complex rules surrounding the Medicaid trusts.
So Alex, the real reason we do these shows is it's about finances.
Yeah.
You see, when you have all this money coming down to your children or grandchildren, and then maybe something happens to your son or daughter, one of them passes away, and of course they have children, like we said about Mr. and Mrs. Oblivious, the problem comes down to how does the money get spent? How does it be organized in a fashion where the crows and the clowns, government, maybe divorcees, maybe they're going to try to get their hands on all your goodies. And this is what we see. And by the way, just because you have a testamentary trust doesn't mean you can't update it on a yearly basis, which we're in our firm, when we meet with people on the annual review or a quick phone call, or maybe there's an opportunity out there we can help people, what we find often is maybe as we ask the questions about the legalities and the beneficiaries, maybe they need to change it. So you can make changes down the line, but if you've got kids or family that are squabbling, or maybe the money is going to the wrong place, or you're not sure, keep in mind this is a great provision to put in, and you can obviously, on top of having the great provision put in, you can change it later online. So it's not set it and forget it. This is something your advisor should be reviewing on a quick annual basis, not in depth, and ask, by the way, how the kids, what's going on? Anybody pass away? Your son and daughter, they're going through a divorce. What's going on? Or do you have any kids that had a special needs? Maybe they played football and they got in an accident, and maybe they're in a wheelchair, like a case I did in Toms River, New Jersey, where the gentleman got in a football accident. Now we have to have a special needs trust, hide the money. So as George clearly stated, he doesn't lose the benefits from the government, Alex. So this is not a set and forget it. This is a discussion on an ongoing basis with your financial advisor.
If you have questions about what we are talking about today, that number for Scott McLean, George Castanis, the team at McLean Advisory Group, 609-488-4646, 609-488-4646. All right, another question here, the final one. This one is coming from Linda in California. Okay, Linda says, I have a special needs child. How can a testamentary trust provide my child without affecting their government benefits? And I know you kind of talked about this a little bit, but if you would, kind of just emphasize that point for me, Scott.
You know, Linda, this is really important to understand for those listening as well. I'm so glad these questions come in. When you look at testamentary trust, it can be tailored really to provide a special needs child without jeopardizing the eligibility of government benefits. George brought that up earlier. So if you're just joining us and you have a special needs child, it could be a great, great tool to preserve the assets from the government, nursing home, somebody taking it. Now, this is often done through the special needs trust, which is a type of testamentary trust that allows the management of assets for the benefits of the special needs individual. Again, you set it. It's not set or forget it, but you're going to put it in place. And once it's there, we need to have a trustee and a backup trustee. And so this is important. George, what else have you noticed when we dealt with people like this?
That's absolutely right, Scott. Now, we want to ensure that you're maximizing every dollar, and that's between the government benefits. And at the end of the day, money is a tool to live the life you want, the quality of life you want. And by using these benefits, the government benefits, and these tools such as a testamentary trust, you can ensure a higher quality of life for your child and cover expenses that aren't covered by government benefits alone.
And if you could, where does this testamentary trust fit in as part of that comprehensive retirement strategy? As we're hearing this, how does this all fit into the overall plan?
It fits in on the first meeting when we meet people. It fits on the first meeting when you're looking for an advisor. It fits in when they ask questions about your dollars. And then when they talk about your money, it's not just about the dollars, but first it's about your dreams, how you see it happening, how you want things to be laid out. That starts with the first meeting on the discovery period, the dreams. And then, of course, the dollars, where they're going to go. And then the legacy, how should it be passed on. This 3D approach is so critical. It's a holistic approach. And then when you start to frame out this, when we start to do it with our clients, we then call their lawyer. Or if they want to use the lawyers that we work with, they can use that as well. It's not just about McLean, but McLean is pretty much, our goal is really to design the car you want to drive, and the lawyer's job is to build it. And as we talk about it, because we've done this for 40 plus years, I can tell you that for sure, that we want to make sure your money is going in the right place, because I can tell you, the crows and the clowns, they will show up at the funeral, but maybe they can't knock on the door because you have an ironclad program. I promise you, this is important if you don't pay attention.
Well, and when is it important to start the process? I mean, if I'm looking at this, what age, or is it about where I'm at in my life? What's the answer as far as getting this going?
It's so simple. I'm an old dog. I'm 65. You got George here. What's it, 36, 37? And I can tell you, what age, George, you think somebody should start this?
You hit the nail on the head. There are so many factors there that could produce a need to start planning. But honestly, at the end of the day, we see more and more people that fail because they just go through life buying financial products or investments. And here we really do like to start it with the planning first, the ideas first. What do you want your money to do for you? So really, it's either life situations, it's what you're planning on doing in the future. The sooner you start, the better. That's for sure. Don't put this aside. It's so easy to not do this since there is no timeline or final due date. But I'll tell you, life catches up quick with you. And the slower you are with this, the more you're going to have to do at the end. So always you want to start with that plan and then work towards that plan.
Listen to me. If your kids, I challenge you, dads and moms, to speak to your kids, and they're over 18, do they have a power of attorney? Have they taken care of their estate? Maybe you have a mom, maybe you have children that have children, maybe you have grandkids. Have you gotten with your son or your daughter, looked them in the eye as my dad would do me, as I remember so many times, with that strong eyes looking at me? Did you set up your will? Did you take care of the kids? What happens if you pass away? And it's not that emotional, but it can be emotional. And it's not that really pushy, because I can tell you, if you care about your kids, you want to find out from your kids, is it done? Because I can tell you, as we took in a daughter at 8 years old, her mom and dad didn't have a will. The father didn't want to raise her, and we raised her because that was the right thing to do. But what a nightmare it could have been had I not had the right contacts and the right people in my life. You have the right people in your life. It's right here at McLean Advisory Group. We've been doing these education shows for so long, and if you've been putting it off, please give our studios a call. Let us help answer your question. Ask for George. He's way overqualified. He's a CFP. He's got his license. He's been doing it over 15 years. I can tell you one thing. Either one of us will help you make the decisions or help guide you to making the right decisions for your family. And don't forget about standing up to your kids, because they need to be reminded to get their legal matters in order, not just a will.
Now, Scott, that brings up another question we get all the time. A lot of people are listening to the Testamentary Trust, lawyers. Do you have to be super wealthy to need one of these? What is there a net asset? Is there a number when I need to start thinking about this? Or I could just feel that a lot of listeners are saying, you know what, I'm not that wealthy to need this.
You know, whether you're not wealthy or not, you need to have a written document, or the government's going to give you a written document. The document that in this state of New Jersey, they have their own written document. So by not giving your desires out there, you've let the desires of the state take over. Now, who's better to handle it, you or the state? So this is why it's so important. I have a younger daughter right now. She's 19. Her affairs are in order. I've got an older daughter. She's 47. You want to make sure their affairs in order. Now, whether they do it or don't do it, that's not on you. It's on you to bring it up. Lead the horse to water, salt the oats, and hopefully they'll drink.
Scott McLean, George Castanis of McLean Advisory Group, here to help. That number, 609-488-4646. If you have questions, again, that phone number, 609-488-4646. More financial insanity coming up.
Stop for a moment and think about this. Do you know how much money in your 401k or IRA is actually yours? Or will the government take a bigger chunk than you thought? Remember, you still might owe taxes on that money, but do you have a plan to help make sure you don't pay more than you should? At McLean Advisory Group, we believe you deserve to keep more of what you've earned, which is why we're here to help you navigate the confusing world of retirement taxes. It's your money. You deserve to know what's at stake. Right now, taxes are historically low, but they won't be this low forever. So call the McLean Advisory Group team today so you don't miss out on this opportunity. 609-488-4646. That's 609-488-4646. You work hard for your money, and we'll work just as hard to help you keep it. McLean Advisory Group, 609-488-4646. Investment advisory services offered through Sound Income Strategies, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisory firm. McLean Tax Advisory Group and Sound Income Strategies are not associated entities.
I call it the chicken and the egg. The chicken is the investment. The egg is the dividend. And so when the chicken pops out the eggs, if you don't need the money, let's reinvest the eggs and buy more chickens.
Man, that's just an excellent analogy, Scott.
This is Financial Insanity with Scott McLean, powered by McLean Advisory Group.
Well, if you've been with an advisor for a while and you're thinking about making a change, there are 5 signs it is finally time to fire your financial advisor, or maybe you're just considering getting a second opinion. We're going to hear about that now. Scott McLean here on Financial Insanity. Thank you so much for joining us. And Scott.
Thanks, Alex.
Yes, this is one of those times where, maybe somebody's out there thinking, gosh, I don't know if this person is right for me, or maybe they're thinking, I've been hearing about the value of getting a second opinion, and maybe one of these notes here or one of these signs will resonate with you. So let's jump into it here, Scott. So the first sign that it could be time to fire your current advisor, they are not acting in your best interest. I know that is so important, Scott.
It's really important, Alex. When I hire a limousine driver to bring me to the airport or bring me somewhere, my best interest is to get there on time, safely, securely, with a nice, smooth, comfortable ride. The challenge is, in this volatile market, are they paying attention to it? Or maybe they're acting on their benefit. Let's get the highest rate of return, but that's speeding up and slowing down and speeding up on that limousine. Well, if they're not acting in the best interest, they're not a fiduciary. They're selling products that may have their pocketbook. Are they ethically bound by, as we are, as a fiduciary? Are they obligated to really ask lots of deep, concerning questions? I think that's the number one. Are they acting in your best interest out there listening to me? Are they just, don't worry, hang in there, like they said when I was in the early 80s, hang in there, don't worry, it'll come back. In the year 2000, hang in there, don't worry, it'll come back. That's what they told us to say. Those statements doesn't work when you're in retirement or nearing retirement. So number one is, Alex, are they really looking at your best interest? Are they asking about your spouse and their health? Asking lots of really come to Jesus, I call it, questions. Are they really getting down in the dirt? Maybe you have a child that's disabled. Are they thinking about that child? How are they going to protect it? Maybe their lights are twinkling. They're getting dementia. Are they listening to your best interest, not just growing the money? That's really important. They're looking maybe at commissions versus really advising. That's really important.
Well, like a driver that maybe's getting gas after picking you up as opposed to doing before. They're not acting in your best interest. Like, you want an advisor to be thinking about me instead of thinking about yourself.
Absolutely.
Now, number 2 here, as we're going through 5 signs that it could be time to fire your advisor, they dismiss your input, Scott. You wouldn't want that.
I don't know anybody, and it's time really to leave, dismissing the input. I think if I was at Christmas time, if I wanted a new tennis racket, I remember the famous Arthur Ashe tennis racket. I played tennis a lot when I was younger, and I really wanted a tennis racket. Well, if I got a ping pong racket, I wanted a tennis racket. Different game. You had to hit the ball across the little fence or the big fence. The question is, did mom and dad dismiss me? And that really makes a challenge for how I feel about things. You didn't listen, Mom, Dad, or you didn't listen, Mr. and Mrs. Advisor. You see, with the expertise of asking about the taxes, ask about the legal questions, ask about the financial and investment questions. Maybe you were aggressive a few years ago when the market was taking off, but now it's going down, and they don't listen to you because they say, well, it's going to come back. Hang in there. Don't worry. They absolutely didn't listen, and maybe they respond, but they didn't take action. And this is a real problem in the industry today because hopefully the market's come back. It's had a real challenge. I would like, if anybody's out there listening, you'd like a little discussion. Let's have a little talk. I'd love to talk to you off the air, and if you'd like to ask some questions to me, I'll be happy to get a hold of you. You can actually leave it with Bonnie, and Bonnie will set up a time to have you talk to us off the air at 609-488-4646. Because when you hire a financial advisor, not only, number one, they were saying not acting in your best interest, and number two, are they listening or are they dismissing your input? In other words, maybe you had a child that has to move back in with you because they made a series of bad decisions and they're going through a financial challenge. Okay, that needs to be in the plan. That's why I think these financial plans are good for a short period of time, maybe a month or two, not for a long period of time because life happens. So number one, not acting in best interest. Number two, they dismiss your input. Please, this is important to discuss this, if not on a yearly basis, at least once or twice, maybe 4 times a year if your life is really changing. Don't let your input get dismissed. Alex, now you had number 3, which is really challenging. Alex, what have you heard out? What was number 3, the biggest challenge you've heard?
Sure, and what I'll say, too, is, and this kind of goes, 2 and 3 kind of go hand in hand, and to your point about a person like Bonnie. Bonnie is just such a great asset for you, a tremendous person to work with, to talk to, and just a great person to have in your office, and somebody who will never be number 3, difficult to reach, because sure, Scott, you might be in and out of meetings with other fine folks, and Bonnie is the person in your office to be there to help take those calls and guide clients to you and through the process. But number 3, as far as 5 signs it could be time to fire your advisor, they're difficult to reach.
You know, Alex, that's a wonderful choice. I was going to bring that up. I had different words, but your words are much better than mine. Difficult to reach. You know, we've actually just hired 2 more people because our practice is growing, which I'm so pleased that's growing. We get so many of our clients referring us, and not being able to. The number 1 goal is to take care of our clients. Number 2 goal is get new business, and of course we got to get new business, keep our business going. But luckily, we don't work out of the back of our car. We don't travel to someone's house. We don't. We have to have them come here. I used to do that in the early years of my practice, from 1982, 83, 84. And actually stopped doing that in around 1995, 96, where people started coming in. I just could not make my time worthwhile. So if they're working on the back of the car, God bless them. But if they don't have a staff and someone to follow up with the questions, we're trying to train our new staff members to answer a lot of questions because we don't want people hanging out there. Just today, we had the beautiful husband pass away, and we're now discussing with them, okay, with his wife, okay, how do we plan your income? You've just lost your husband's Social Security since yours was higher. He had a pension. His pension dropped down from $1,000 a month to $450 a month. So we have to make that up. We're trying to figure that out. You know what? They need to reach somebody. And that's important. That's why we have to have a staff. So I think that's really important because, you know, again, being in that limousine, you want to be able to communicate with people which way to go, how to get there. They think they know where to go, but maybe you have a different area. So if you can't reach them, they dismiss your impact. They are not acting in your best interest. Well, are they difficult to reach? And this is really, really a challenge I hear. It's almost like you buy a product at the bank, thinking the bank's going to protect you. You set it and forget it. And that is not the area, because life as a fiduciary, as an advisor, it has a lot of different segments, which is legal, tax, and finance.
Well, and if you want to reach Scott, you can at 609-488-4646. Again, the number 609-488-4646. Going through 5 signs it could be time to fire your advisor. Number 1, they're not acting in your best interest. Number 2, they dismiss your input. Number 3, they're difficult to reach. Number 4, Scott, they don't give you the details. Now, I don't want all the details, but heck, if I'm giving you some of my money or a lot of my money, I would like to kind of know what's going on and what you're doing with it, and not have it be a bunch of mumbo jumbo.
You know, whether they're investing $5,000 or $500,000, $1 million, each person is not, Alex, a cookie cutter. Now, when I say cookie cutter, Alex, what that means for those of you listening, let's say you have mutual funds and you bought what's called target date mutual funds. They call it the 2020, 2025, 2030. In other words, when are you going to retire? And say, well, I'm going to retire in 2035. Okay, you click it, set it, forget it. No. Not good. You need to really pay attention to those areas because they got to dig down for more details as to how much do you want to pull out. If it's for income, do we want money for our special needs child? What happens if you become disabled? These are in-depth questions that could lead down the estate planning role, which we do at our firm. I think you know that, Alex. We do that really. We got great people. Maybe they have other types of investment tools they didn't tell us about or didn't tell the advisor about. They need to pull that in, which we did just the other day, where they had an extra $30,000, which didn't change their life, but they said, oh, Scott, by the way, we have an extra $30,000. Great, let's put that over here. You take care of it. Go put it in a 3% account at Ally Bank if you wish to use them. Great liquid. But again, people's details are so important. Most of the times what I find, Alex, is if I don't ask the questions, they may not even remember to ask. Or if I don't ask diving deep questions, by the way, who does your money go to? Oh, you want to make sure it's protected because your daughter has a spendthrift problem? Well, maybe we need a spendthrift trust because if she gets it all at once, she's going to blow it. Or maybe your son is married to a person, a woman, a man that they don't like, and you want to protect that money from that person. Maybe we need to have that discussion. Again, this is a time for the advisor that I hope, if before you advise them, are they asking you really deep down, I call it intimate questions, intimate meaning intimately about your finances, to make sure you preserve your money. The money goes to the right place. And today's could be different than 2 years from now. So again, a tight lip will sink a ship. Well, could it sink a ship if you know there's a hole in it? Well, let's go tell the captain we got a problem. So again, I'm not sure what you guys are doing out there listening. That's right. You right now that are listening to me, you got to give all the information out there. They're not asking. That's why I wrote the book, The Three Blind Mice, how the financial planning process leads your money to a mousetrap. I bring up 11 different flags that pop up. And for those of you listening right now, if you'd like to get a copy of my book, I'd love to get it in your hands any way possible. Just give Bonnie a call, because these are some questions that Alex brought up, the 5 different areas. Number 1, not acting in your best interest. Fire him or your advisor. Number 2, they dismiss your input. They're not listening, trying to have their own agenda, not your agenda. And by the way, your agenda may change, as we just spoke. Number 3 was they're difficult to reach. And lastly, number 4 is they don't give you clear or all the details. But there's one more.
One more, Scott.
There's one more that's really, really, really important that ties it all together. Alex, what was that number 5? I think that you found when you speak to your mom and dad and other advisors, families.
Absolutely. We got just a couple minutes left. We want to go over the last one, and this one's important. And for you, it's something that's easy. You're a people person. You're a social guy. You're easy to get along with, and you want to get to know people. And this is the last one. So 5 signs it could be time to fire your advisor. The last one, they don't take the time to get to know you. Why is that important, Scott?
Guys, listen, if you're listening to me right now, if you invest any money with an advisor, the first time you meet them, you need to run. If they beg you for money, you need to run. You need to get to know them. know their personality, their role. It just may not be a good fit. And if you're married, have a special partner, you know what? You guys need to talk about it on your own. I would do no business with anybody. I tell it to clients when they come visit me, Alex. We will not do business today. I want to get to know you. I want to know if I can help you. I want to know if we're a good fit for our firm and a good fit for you. Because if something happens to you, I need to know how our firm can best serve you. So they don't take time to get to know you. You need to get your questions written. Not just, are you a fiduciary? That's important. Please. 609-488-4646. This was, again, the top subjects, the top area that people want to make a shift in their advisors. It's time to look at them. Number one, they're not acting in your best interest. Number two, they dismiss your input. Number three, they're difficult to reach. Very important. Number four, they don't give you the details. They need to give you all the details. And lastly, really don't take time to get to know you. This could be a wonderful time to get another opinion.
This radio program may contain information which has gone regulatory or other significant changes since its original recording. The information and views expressed on today's show is educational in nature and is not intended to be a recommendation for any specific investment, product, strategy, plan, tax, or legal advice. Information presented is believed to be factual and up to date, but we do not guarantee its accuracy. Investment advisory services offered through Sound Income Strategies, LLC, a SEC-registered investment advisory firm. McLean Advisory Group and Sound Income Strategies, LLC, are not associated entities.
This radio show is a paid placement.